Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. One of my favorite people in the world, Doug Wendt, the other Doug, the better Doug, my
No, not the
alter
better
ego, the more handsome,
Doug.
the more talented, the more extraordinary Doug Wendt, who happens to be today in kind of one of my main hometowns, which I went to high school in a place called Endicott, New York, which is on the southern tier of Pennsylvania and New York. Not the most exciting place in the world, except when you're Doug Wendt. Everywhere he
Well, it's a
goes is a
beautiful place, though. Let's just be clear. It's absolutely stunning up here, especially today in the mountains. So,
It's in the summer in upstate New York. There's almost none better, and then the fall,
absolutely.
is extraordinary, and so it's a great place to be. The rest of the world, the rest of the time, not so much, but but nonetheless, Woodstock was fairly nearby. If those of you who are familiar, and then of course, Corning Glass Works is kind of close, and Cornell is a pretty famous university that's nearby, and IBM used to have their mainframe in my hometown of Endicott, New York. So there's a lot going on up there, or used to be anyway. But wherever Doug Wendt is, something is going on. And today we're going to be talking about HubSpot and growth. And one of the things that we know about Doug is that over the years he's transformed himself into the world's number one expert on HubSpot, and we got so convinced that we're implementing HubSpot at Global Chamber, and so Jem is leading the charge of getting our data over, and in fact I think it's actually migrating today. So we've got a busy day with HubSpot. We've got Jem moving data, and we've got Doug talking about how do you use it to be more effective? And in particular, I don't know what a global sales fire triangle is, but I guess I'm going to find out. What in the world, Doug, is a global sales fire triangle? And what else would you like to do to kick things off?
I appreciate that very kind introduction, Doug, and it's great to see everybody here. And so let me set the stage for the discussion. I'll do some presenting, but I also want it to be very interactive. And I also want to make a clarification just so we're all comfortable. Yes, I'll be demonstrating some things in HubSpot today, and we'll be talking about it. But the goal here is not to discuss anything that only HubSpot could do. What I'm trying to do is show you how you can use HubSpot or tools like it. I happen to think HubSpot's a spectacular tool, including for both large enterprises and small firms. But I'm not here to promote HubSpot. I'm here to use it as an example of how we can drive what I like to call the fire triangle of driving global growth. So we'll get into that in a few moments as well. Different people have different, concepts of how do we continue to move the ball forward on the business development machine. And what I want to talk about today is organizing those elements in a manner that befits a lot of the businesses that are Global Chamber members, right? So typically, Global Chamber members fall into one of two categories. Either they're large organizations that are primarily sponsors, or they are small professional firms and technical experts and consultancies and brokers in specific areas that are relevant to the global trade and business environment. So what I want to do is talk about how, whether I am a team of one or I'm a team of 100, I can create this process that keeps generating new value, new opportunity. Some of the concepts I'll be talking about, you might have heard some of you of this idea of a flywheel. So I'll be talking about that as well. The idea of a flywheel is how do I utilize my ecosystem of existing customers and relationships to create new business on an ongoing basis. I think that's a key part of it. But I'm also a believer that we need to have a really healthy mix of business generated from existing relationships and business generated from net new outreach activities or lead generation activities. So I'll be talking about both of those. So again, the role of HubSpot here is as a tool to demonstrate concepts. Now, in order to do a lot of these things effectively, you have to have a tool like HubSpot. You have to have some kind of a customer relationship management platform. So, my overall statement to kind of kick the conversation off is everybody should have some kind of a CRM tool in place. Okay. Even HubSpot has a free edition. It has 4 editions: free, starter, professional, and enterprise. Now, I'll be showing some things that are available in some of the more costly editions to talk about what you can do with technology, even if you're a small firm. But at the same time, my point being, price is not necessarily a barrier to entry to at least start using these tools. HubSpot has a free edition and a starter edition. So does Zoho. For that matter, so does Salesforce. So does Microsoft. So pretty much any one of these companies, and those are the top 4 right there. I just listed the top 4 CRM vendors, on the planet. HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, Microsoft. Choose one of those. Start, if you want to start with the free, or typically the starter edition gives you a lot of value for a very small spend, but get a tool. Get a tool. Doesn't really matter what it is, okay, but get a tool. Why? I've been doing this a long time. I like to think I'm a younger person. I'm not as young as I'd like to pretend that I am. But my brain cannot keep track of everything that I'm doing. It cannot keep track of every sales opportunity. It can't even keep track of every critical business relationship. It is simply not possible. And you will realize that the moment you start using a tool like this. Because, for example, today I had 5 sales calls. 2 of them I had time to prepare for, and 3 of them I did not have time to prepare for. So how did I actually prepare for them? Well, my CRM system had the notes from the call recording of the last meeting. It had my most recent email communication. It had all those things lined up. So even though I didn't have a chance to prep, I walked into the meeting with those notes and those transcripts in front of me and was able within moments to speak intelligently about where we're at and where we're going. And I'm going to start sharing some key concepts that I think are really sort of hard learned best practices for how to run our business development machines. Okay. Because we all have 2 critical challenges outside of serving the client. I'm going to presume for the moment that we are all brilliantly perfect at serving our clients once they sign. Nothing ever happens that's bad. Every contract is perfectly executed and every client loves us. Okay. So we're going to take that piece of it off the table. We'll have that in another web event. Okay. I want to focus on the 2 things that are challenging to get us to that point. The first is generating leads, and the second is getting people to sign on the line that is dotted. Okay. And I'm actually going to focus first on the second, because why not? The second one is how to get people to sign on the dotted line. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of friends, including fellow Global Chamber members, who are really good at having that first call, and then they struggle to keep the conversation going, and they struggle to get to signature. And I'm going to talk about how we can use technology, but also just some solid best practices to help you make sure that you get to signature in every opportunity that you possibly can. Okay. So let me first open up a screen here so that I'm talking with a little bit of a visual in the background. And you're going to see my contact record. So this is in the HubSpot platform.
Hey, Doug.
So yes, sir. Go ahead, Doug.
Just as a facilitation framework of what we're expecting,
Yes.
this meeting is going to be another 50 or so minutes. This is an overall an hour program. And you're going to give some information, and you're also very interactive, right? So should people
Absolutely.
raise their hand if they have a question, or
Oh,
use the chat, or what would you
I'm sorry. Yes, of course, I completely forgot. Absolutely. I'll keep the chat open. I see there are a couple items already there, but yes, if you have a question, by the way, feel free to just raise your hand the physical way and come off mute. This is, it's not like we have 100 people here. We have a decent sized, but still quite small group. I'm happy to answer questions on the fly. So yes, if you want to type it in the chat, type it in the chat. If you want to just raise your hand virtually or physically, just know that if you do it physically, I might not see you if I don't have, you in my view, because when I'm on my screen view, I don't see everyone. So yes, absolutely. And Jem or Doug, if you see someone raising their hand and I don't see it, feel free to call it out.
Okay, just one quick question, because on my screen I see two people that need to connect: Steve Nikokiris and Mike Patterson. They're both amazingly capable leaders in their own areas. Steve on the accounting side with uh, in New York City, and Mike Patterson in Phoenix on the legal side. And they both of you are incredibly capable. And I wonder, in what Doug Wendt just mentioned about keeping track of all the people that you both know, both of you are so deeply connected in your communities. I wonder, do either of you use HubSpot by any chance, or do you use a software program?
I do not. Our firm has struggled. I think we do have a CRM, and I'm embarrassed that, Doug, I don't use it. I haven't used it.
Amazing.
We have actually content that we put out in about 30 different areas: labor, tax, etc. And they've tried to get us to get our contacts in there and categorize them by the type of needs that they have, so
Right.
that they can provide them with free information from time to time, and then also do follow-up. I have a colleague who has his own CRM. He's a young guy, and I'm learning from him. He's using it well, and his intake and gets to signature. He actually has a process where people sign his engagement letter after a while. I've done pretty well over the years, just relationally saying, "Hey, let's sign you up," and I know just if people like me, they say yes, etc. However, I have not gotten organized through the many years, and now I'm in my 60s, and I'm the old dog that needs to learn new tricks. Yeah.
Amazing. So Mike's firm is Spencer Fain. So let's do a follow up there. CBiz, on the other hand, has got to have a system, right? Stephen, you use something.
Hey, Stephen.
Oh,
We
I
use
think there we
use
go.
Salesforce, but to be honest with you, there's only a handful of people that actually have licenses to use it, and so I am not one of them. And so
wow.
I'm really interested to hear more and try to figure out how to be better. So
Amazing.
maybe I'm the old fart in the room and trying to get smarter and better at this kind of thing. So I'm all ears.
Amazing.
Well, and
You guys
no,
know
go
each
ahead,
other, I
Doug.
think, right? You guys have met
Oh,
each
yeah.
other? Oh, okay, cool.
Doug and Stephen, or Doug and Michael, or Michael and Stephen? The Stephen and I have met a number of times. Michael and I know each other, but haven't had a chance to connect in real life yet. Although I think we shook hands at one of the events that was hosted at Stephen's office, Michael, if I recall correctly.
When you're in Phoenix, we'll get you connected.
Okay,
That'd be great.
excellent.
Thank you very much.
Spectacular.
Sorry to interrupt, Doug.
No. In fact, you brought up a really good point, which I think is critical for everyone to hear and understand. We look in a competitive environment. Let's suppose I run a 2-person CPA firm. I'm gonna pick on Stephen now for a minute, and Stephen works for, 2,000 member CPA firm. And the important thing to understand here is, in using this kind of technology and a disciplined process, you flatten the competitive landscape. Okay. The size of the firm does not dictate the sophistication of the sales and marketing machine behind it. It can, okay, but it doesn't automatically necessarily do that. So this creates opportunities for everyone. It creates opportunities for small firms or solo practitioners. It creates opportunities for individual contributors in large firms as well. It's not uncommon for us to have, for example, there is a commercial real estate firm that will go unnamed in Midtown Manhattan that also is standardized on Salesforce that nobody uses. And so we have 2 teams from that firm that are using HubSpot as kind of their quiet, little CRM, little CRM on the hill, if you will, on its own to do what they need to do. So, regardless of the situation, I just want to emphasize there's an opportunity here that is available to everyone. And the other thing that's really important is, if you can plan and practice a process now that can scale with you, you're going to be in much better shape. So I want to just go back to something Michael said and make that clear across the board. we are all people who are in the knowledge and expertise business. Otherwise, we wouldn't be members of the Global Chamber. The Global Chamber, when I compare it to any other kind of business group, the thing that really stands apart for me, other than the fact that it's global, is the level of intellectual prowess and just amazing knowledge and expertise of the members. So one important thing to call out, it is absolutely possible through pure, awesome work, great delivery, and outstanding and lasting reputation to build a great practice or a great business. Okay. It is theoretically true that nothing I'm talking about here is necessary to build a great business. That said, my argument is that by doing these things, you build a scalable and sustainable business. And I think those are two really important points, particularly in this kind of environment of constant change, confusion, uncertainty, all of those things. You know, we know that we don't want to just rest on our reputation. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a negative. I'm saying that's a foundation. The first thing we all need is a great reputation, quality work delivery, you know, and a good commitment to client success. If we have those ingredients, now we can layer in these things, and with a little bit of planning and effort, we can supercharge our business development machine. Okay. So hopefully those sort of foundational fundamentals are things that you've already spent a lot of time focusing on. I just want to encourage you not to be afraid to also focus on the business development aspect. I think a lot of times those of us who have, you know, if I spent all of my day doing my craft, business development feels like an alien skill set for me, perhaps. And it's like, I enjoy talking with, I just had this conversation with a friend. He said, I love talking with prospective clients, but I forget to sell them anything. And that was a very honest acknowledgement. He's like, I'm solving their business problem. And I said, so you're consulting, but you haven't actually started the engagement. And he said, yes, because I don't really even think about like how to not do that. Okay. So I know I'm talking a little bit about practice alongside technology, and I'll try to balance those two throughout today's conversation because it takes a little bit of both. If we're going to scale, I'll call it practice and platform. Okay. Stephen, did you have a question or a comment? It looked like you might add something to add. I just want to give him permission to comment since I picked on him very kindly a moment ago. Does anybody have anything to add, by the way? Again, this can be completely interactive if anyone wants to raise their hand.
Can I just
Yes.
say that I do need to run, but I just wanted to say something. I am blown away that there are 16 AI note takers on this call that I counted. I've never seen that many before. Everybody is using AI. And
Yes.
I'll make my one comment that I need to have. That's fine for an industry chamber call like this. But I would say if you're ever talking to your lawyer, you need to turn it off because it blows the attorney-client privilege and it is discoverable in litigation.
Absolutely.
But go ahead and use them. They're wonderful, aren't they? I love them.
Absolutely. Yes. And in fact, if you see in HubSpot and other similar products, you see here the little four-pointed star that says Copilot. That is HubSpot's built-in AI capability. So what, you know, there are a lot of different ways to do AI, but one of them is, is the tool that I'm using providing AI capability right in front of me. So I don't have to leave my context. In fact, I can click here and it will bring up the Copilot to help answer questions. I can summarize something. Hey, let's say summarize Doug Brunke contact record. And of course, whenever I present, suddenly I forget how to spell. There we go. So now it's going to find his record and start summarizing that information. Okay. So in this case, the AI tools are built right into the software. One of the things that HubSpot has done that goes beyond that is HubSpot also now, and I'm not trying to turn this into an AI specific conversation, but I think it's notable. HubSpot has now connected to both OpenAI and a couple of the other AI products so that you can actually run a query on your HubSpot data through OpenAI. For example, some of you may have started using OpenAI's Deep Research Connector. HubSpot supports OpenAI's Deep Research Connector. So you can actually ask a deep research question and the HubSpot data will be included in the analysis that's performed. Okay. This is an example of where we're seeing the merging, the unification of CRM and AI together. Okay. So one of the fundamental things that I just want to make clear right at the outset is that if I'm in my inbox, and my inbox is an absolute nightmare, so just be warned, okay? I can be in my inbox and I have a whole bunch of tools at my disposal that come from my CRM. Pretty much all of us probably live in our inbox and our calendar apps, okay? And the question is, how do I squeeze in time with my CRM tool if I'm already living in my inbox and my calendar? And there are definite advantages to spending some of my time in the actual CRM directly. But the other side of this is that I can send an email to Doug from my email client. In this case, it's Gmail. It could just as well be Microsoft. And I could select a template from my CRM. I could send him a proposed set of times to book a meeting. I could automatically create a follow-up task on the sending of this. Boy, isn't that helpful. My gosh. I sent an email to Doug. Hey, let's talk next week at that networking event we're going to be at. And then I completely forget to follow up and confirm that he's actually registered to attend. How often does that kind of thing happen? One of the other tools that's available in HubSpot and tools like it is sequences. This is a perfect example of, hey, I'm a solo practitioner, a small firm, or a large firm. How can I go about the process of getting something started without having to babysit it every step of the way? Sequences in HubSpot terminology is a function that allows me to say, hey, I'm going to reach out to Doug. I'm going to ask him if we can meet sometime in the next few weeks. And then if he doesn't get back to me or schedule a meeting with me, I'm going to send him a reminder note in 4 days. And then I might send a third note in 2 days. And after that, I might get a reminder task to call him or text him. Okay. And keep the process going. But if Doug does reply back to me, or he books a meeting on my calendar, stop the sequence. Okay. This is an incredibly powerful tool because the way it's done here, I can also add into it things such as a little video or a document or something we call snippets, which is where I want to have a preset text string that I want to drop in. So you can basically pre-configure your business development machine, select a person and say, I want to enroll this person in that business development flow, and it will be professional, personalized, and it will move between the automated components and you actually picking up the phone or texting or meeting them at an event or some other human mediated activity. And I'm doing all this without actually leaving my email inbox. Okay. So I have those capabilities. I can drop in a document. Something that I've started to see more people doing is actually dropping in a payment link. Right. This could be a follow-up to a conversation. Maybe you were having a conversation with a prospective client. So for example, I have a friend who's a trademark attorney, and her clients pretty much fall into two categories. They're either small businesses who are looking for a fixed fee, I'll spend $500 or $1,000 with you. I'll get this trademark package and then I'll be on my way. Or they're more sophisticated, larger businesses who are looking for a bespoke proposal, right? Well, in the first scenario, let's say I'm having that conversation and Doug is looking to come to me for those services. And I realize, okay, he's ready to buy a package service. I could literally drop in the payment link in my follow-up email and say, Doug, it was great chatting with you. Here is the link to this particular service. And all you have to do is click on it, put your credit card, and we'll be in business together. See, what we're trying to do is solve two problems that we all are plagued by. Number one, I don't have the brain power and the capacity to remember to follow up on everything. And number two, I want to reduce steps that I have to manually take to get the business development process done. What are those components? Finding out what's going on, getting a conversation started, scoping an opportunity, starting to define what is the sellable thing here, right? This is an example of where I'm able to do that. Just click, click, click. Another key component of this fire triangle is multi-pronged outreach, right? So, email, phone. Okay, I did email with a phone, and good time there, Doug. So HubSpot, and again, I'm speaking of HubSpot, but it's true of I think the vast majority of these products. I can use calling inside my CRM. So one reason why people struggle to adopt a CRM is they're doing their calls on their phone, they're doing their emails in their email client, they're texting from their phone. All these things are happening separately. Completely understood. What if I could sit in one screen and look at Doug's record and place a call to him automatically? What if I could drop him a text? What if I could send him an email? What if I could automate that process? Okay, those are all things that we can do here within HubSpot, or we can even initiate them in their email client, whatever the right context is. In fact, recently in HubSpot's case, they upgraded the mobile app so that now you can actually send and receive calls through HubSpot while you're on your mobile phone, right? Traditionally, it was I use my mobile phone for mobile phone things, and basically that would be separate from my CRM. Now we're merging those together. So whatever context I'm in, I'm able to do what I need to do. One of the other things that's so important for all of us here is the ability to create my list of what a lot of people call centers of influence. Okay. So, centers of influence, referral partners, etc. In my world, my centers of influence, one of my biggest categories is people who work at HubSpot. A significant portion of our business comes through relationships I've developed with HubSpot personnel. These are prospects for me because then we co-sell sales opportunities together. But this could just as well be a list of contacts I have through the Global Chamber. In fact, when I add a contact into HubSpot, let's say I was at a Global Chamber event, I can scan a business card from my mobile phone into HubSpot. I'll mark with a special field that they are a Global Chamber contact. So I can now create these filtered views of my different worlds, my centers of influence, right? Because they may overlap. It's like a Venn diagram, right? Who in my HubSpot world is also in New York and also has international experience and therefore would be a good person to bring to a Global Chamber event? Those are the kinds of questions that I can answer through a tool like this. So, whether you want to build your business development machine through your existing relationships and doing what I call concentric growth, which is I've served 100 clients. Those clients, have relationships with maybe 1,500 people. And then, I keep growing from there, right? I build from known to unknown. That's fine. You can do that and do it very effectively in a CRM. The other scenario is I identify my target market and I focus on going after those people whether they know me or not. Okay. So for example, we have an outreach program targeted at the greater New York City tri-state area for anyone who either is on the HubSpot platform or is looking at CRM software. So basically, if you already have HubSpot and you haven't received an email or phone call from us, we're not doing it right. Because if you're in certain geographies, we want to reach out. Now, we want to serve everybody around the world. And this is a global chamber and a global event. So this is just as true in any market. But I give the New York example just because my point is, if I want to be able to reach out and meet people in person, okay, if that's important for your business development motion, you can organize this technology to help support that. And one of the reasons that that's pretty darn easy to do is because you can also integrate it with LinkedIn. And of course, LinkedIn typically has location data. So, I can look at a contact and I can reach out to them on LinkedIn. In HubSpot's case, there's actually a connector between HubSpot and LinkedIn. It's built on Sales Navigator, which is the paid version of LinkedIn. So I do want to point that out. But I can reach out while inside my CRM and send Trisha a connect request. So one of the important things that we try to do is keep track of people who are in our universe that we have some kind of business relationship with. Are we connected to them on LinkedIn? That ends up having way more of an impact than I ever thought, particularly in staying in front of people who already know you or who you already know. And I'll give you my own example, and it completely floored me. So some of you may know, because we're connected on LinkedIn and we've been friends and colleagues for a while, that I sort of have a unique thing going on LinkedIn, and it wasn't intended as a strategy. When I meet with business colleagues and friends in person, I always take a selfie and share a little bit about it. hey, I'm in New York at the Global Chamber event. It was great to see Susan and Charles and the team, and I'll post a photo. That's literally pretty much all I do on LinkedIn. I'm not posting, essays like some of my colleagues in the CRM industry who are posting. I mean, they're brilliant essays, but literally, I don't know when they have the time to do anything else. Like they're posting these white paper length posts on LinkedIn every day. And that's great. And that works for them. I don't have that kind of time. And I stumbled into this particular approach on LinkedIn. You know what I learned? Even if only 8 people like my post, 500 people will see it. And it's overwhelmingly my first level connections. All the time, I'll be in a meeting with a prospect who is a friend of a friend, and we might have connected on LinkedIn, and they'll say, I saw that you were in Boston last week. All of a sudden, we've developed a level of warmth and familiarity just because there's a little something that's personal, it's professional, but also personal that we've connected on. Okay. So just think about, when we talk about marketing, I'm not trying to tell you have to spend, 27 out of every 24 hours of a day, building your brand. It would be great if you could, and it would be great if you could hire a firm or a team to do that. But, that's not everybody's situation. So even if you do something small, if you're building that connectivity with people, they will see it. They will engage and they will remember. They might not engage on the social media platform. Again, I'm not a person who's going for clicks. But what I'm finding is that it just plain works with people who are in my network. It helps people remember that I'm out here. And literally, I've had people reach out and say, I saw that you were at the HubSpot event. And that reminds me, we're considering a CRM. Okay, maybe we should be talking. I've had people reach out and ask for sales calls with me just because of that little bit of outward effort. Okay, and then we support that with some very light marketing and business development activities supported by what a tool like this can do. So, for example, when I enter a new contact in my HubSpot, okay, it automatically enters them into my email newsletter list. Now I can choose, I can say, Trisha really isn't interested. Maybe she's not, but I can also set it up to manually add them. I've just configured it that, hey, if I've met a person, if they're a business contact, these aren't cold contacts. These are people I'm adding because I met them in an event or was introduced to them. When I add them in, I'm adding them to my newsletter list. So at least once a month, they're getting some kind of communication. I didn't have to think further about it because I didn't have to export a list, go over to my constant contact, upload it, hope it's right, check for duplicates. I don't have to do any of that. It just happens. We schedule the e-newsletter. It goes out to the list. Okay. So this is the idea of trying to reduce the stress of running a business development effort because you've got 1,000 other things to do. So, I'm not talking about things that in and of themselves seem particularly radical. And I think that's part of my message. The old idea of the fire triangle, it's like the one thing I remember from elementary school science. Doug was like, fire triangle, what's that about? I'm like, again, it's the one thing I remember from elementary school science. So I'm running with it, right? It takes a spark, it takes a source of fuel, and it takes oxygen. So in this context, to me, it takes a process. Okay. It takes a platform. That's the technology and consistent using it. And the third thing, it takes a personality or a perspective, what some people call a point of view. I was just discussing with a new HubSpot salesperson. Sometimes I start working with new HubSpot salespeople. The reason I work with them a lot, just so everyone's wondering, why does he keep talking about HubSpot salespeople? In HubSpot's business model, we always co-sell. So that's not true in every technology company, but in the HubSpot system, even if I source a prospective client, I'm going to involve a HubSpot salesperson. So we're always co-selling. And that's kind of interesting. It gives me a chance to get to know a lot of people. And I was just chatting with a brand new HubSpot salesperson, and we had walked through a process together. And he said, what's one thing I could do to improve? And I said, well, there's really nothing wrong. I just want to emphasize this is I didn't think there was anything glaringly wrong. But I said, really? I would encourage you, Frank, to focus on developing your point of view. Okay. Now, my point of view, I express it largely through a pretty gregarious kind of relaxed flow. So it's really more personality, maybe. Okay. But at the same time, a point of view could be, I'll give you the trademark example. You might, if I'm a trademark attorney and I have a number of friends who are, and they focus on different areas, maybe my point of view is not everybody needs a trademark. Okay, because what does the prospect come into the call expecting? You're going to be selling me trademark services. Well, let's first determine if you actually need a trademark. Not everybody does. Okay, that might be your point of view. Maybe your point of view is that you're an accountant and you're working primarily with small businesses on tax strategy, and maybe your perspective is tax season is the one time not to talk about taxes. You know, the idea being we need to be discussing this all throughout the year. If we're waiting for tax season, we're not in the right spot. We're in different worldviews. Think about developing a point of view, okay? Because what people are buying is they're buying the experience that they have with you. And so I have two goals whenever I have a sales call, whenever I have a business development discussion. Okay. One is to hopefully effectively develop that sense of warmth through sharing my personality and my point of view, and also getting to know theirs and hopefully eliciting that. Okay. So one reason to have a point of view is you can help people figure out what theirs is. And now you're facilitating them into a stronger place. And then the second thing is always planning for the next discussion and what we want to talk about. Because if you suggest to people, hey, this has been a great conversation. I think in our next conversation, it sounds like what we want to focus on is, you know, determining if your company is ready to file a trademark, as an example, or whether your CFO is prepared, or whether you have the right technology, or what we might do to focus on that first project. I'm just coming up with examples here, right? I'm now suggesting that we're on this shared journey together. And that's really the secret to business development in our world. We're not selling commodities. Even if you are selling.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Go for it, Stephen. Yes.
Okay, so I love what you just said. So now, what you just said, you meet someone for the first time or the second time. How do you use a CRM to help you not forget to follow up with them?
Because the CRM will tell you to follow up with them, and it might even follow up on your behalf. So let's say that you just met Trisha. So in the case of HubSpot, you can actually use the mobile app. You scan her business card in. You met her at a Global Chamber event. Okay. Once that contact's in, you can actually use the mobile app to do what I talked about earlier. You can enroll her in a sequence or send her a templated email that just says, it was great to meet you at the event this week. I look forward to chatting again. And I'll drop you some calendar options for when we might connect. And then the sequence, the second email in the sequence, has that list of calendar options automatically pulled from your calendar. Like, you're nurturing the relationship without having to remember to nurture the relationship. And one of the steps in that process can also be a task. Hey, it's been 3 steps and it's been a week. Have you called Trisha? Okay. Because as we all know, even if you leave a voicemail, them hearing your voice is worth its weight in gold, you know? So the system is driving you forward, but the key is you got to start. If you don't start the process, there is no process. Okay. So, and the reason this is so important is now your mental energy shifts to coming with a perspective, bringing your personality, clarity about what the next steps are. Now you're focused on how to have an effective business development discussion rather than, geez, did I follow up? What was the next step? Where am I going? I'm kind of lost. Your mental energy needs to shift to doing what you do best, which is bring in your A game.
One of the things that I hear about, like for me, you know, being very genuine. So does this negatively impact that? Does it come across as not as genuine, or that's not the case at all?
It could be the case, but done correctly, it is not the case. So
you know what I mean, right?
I know exactly what you mean. So the role here of technology is to support your professionalism. What is a professional? It's a person who does what they say they're going to do, follows up on time, makes sure that things happen, right? At the end of the day, professionalism is like a project management skill set with great communication layered in. Okay. So the CRM, you're writing the template. You know, if you want it to be a little more casual, Like I have colleagues who like write, "Hey, first name. It was great to meet you at the event." That's not my style. I'm also not dear. I'm hi. Okay. Like you got to infuse your personality into the communications. You can infuse it also into your email signature. I'm a big believer in the face-to-face aspect. So I've got my headshot there. I want people to remember me. Okay. So like you can infuse your personality. You can even record a short video and pop it in. You know, hey, Stephen, it was great to see you. Just wanted to record a short video. Looking forward to chatting, you know, in the next few weeks when we have a chance. Here below are some links. Okay.
You know,
So
that's great.
you can make it express your personality, but you've got to put in that time up front to do it. But once you do it, the impact on your business development efficiency just explodes. Like literally, and I can only say this, you know, confidently because I've been through it. I've done I'm going to a networking event. I barely remember to follow up with 2 of the 20 people I met. It takes me a month to get 1 coffee, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that machine to scale. And now, and it's a constant effort every day. I'm always learning, okay, what I need to do better. It never ends, right? It's a journey, not a destination. But I'm literally handling a load of business development activity I could never have done before. And one of the key distinctives is having the platform, is the CRM. Okay. Another distinction is the process. But in order to master the process, it's like nobody wants to go to a surgeon who's removed 5 gallbladders, right? If you're getting your gallbladder removed, you want a surgeon who's done it 1,000 times. Okay. Business development's the same thing. You need the process to help you do it more and more so you get better and better at it. You know, does that answer your question? And does that also
Yes,
kind of
no,
give you,
great. No, it does, because that's, you know, it just enhances and again makes you more efficient with some of the behind the scenes stuff that is just a killer, you know. So that's great.
yeah,
That's exactly what you need, you know, be able to do all the stuff you do great and use someone to help you, you know, effectively. It's like your own personal assistant, you know,
yes.
which is something that everybody needs if they really want to be efficient.
Absolutely. And now we're getting to the point where, to go back to that AI discussion, the AI tools are giving us the ability to actually have sort of a personal assistant aspect to this. So I'm just popping up a different screen. You know, there are really 2 kinds of screens in software like this, right? One is show me a list of records of a certain type or a particular record. That was the Trisha example. The other is put all my stuff together in one place that I need to work on. So this is the sales workspace in HubSpot, and its goal is to put together for you everything you need to do now. I have tasks I need to do. I have outreach activities I need to do. And then this is a new function that's AI fueled. This is called guided actions. So in this example, the software uses the Breeze AI capability to look through your calendar for the day, your next steps, the things you're trying to accomplish, the open deals. We haven't even talked about that, but that's fine. Like I'm tracking my sales opportunities, and it is saying, here are 13 things of the 10,000 you could do that are really, really important. Okay. And by the way, 9 that are specifically related to open sales opportunities, or what HubSpot calls deals. 6 are related to open sales leads. So I can, so let's say you set aside an hour every other day. Let's be realistic, right? I could pretend everybody has at least a half a day to spend on BD. You probably don't. Let's pretend that if you really focus, you could commit 3 hours a week. Maybe it's the first hour of the day, every other day. Okay. You start here. You use this one screen, and it's going to walk you through everything you need to do to make that happen. And that's the automation, that's the processes that you've set up in the software, and it is also the AI tools as well, providing that capability. And you can set these settings. So this is like, how does it work? Okay, do I want it to help me prep communications to new sales leads? So someone comes to my website, they fill out a form, and then nothing happens, right? Here, the software can grab that contact from a form, set up a proposed, you know, a draft email. This is the AI piece, and I review it. I can personalize it, and then I send. You know, I have a friend, he's retired now. He's a commercial real estate agent for 35 years. And he did all this, you know, with a 1996, you know, Windows 1.0 laptop and Act, okay? And his key to personalizing was always adding one little thing. It might have been, saw that your niece was in the paper. It might have been, hey, did you catch the latest game? I know that you have season tickets. Just one little thing to keep that personal. And the way the system's set up here is you can add that personalization. It's prepping everything, and then you just rock it through and you add that little note that you want. And now you've communicated with 20 people, and it took you less than an hour, as opposed to sitting down and taking most of the hour to figure out, who do I communicate with? So to your point, this is your assistant. That's correct. It's your business development assistant.
Oh, so you could, for example, if someone, if you know someone, has 3 kids, they're all girls, or someone's,
Yes.
got a son who plays baseball, or who went to Harvard, you could keep those little notes, and then you could ever use them to reminders, to follow up anything relating to that.
Absolutely. And you could do it in just notes. You could do it in a field, or you could try to automate a lot of it. Put the birthdays in the date field, and that way whose birthdays are coming up, and you can send them a personal note. So the level of sophistication of that can vary. What I also recommend is, like, for a lot of people, choose 1 or 2 that are really things that are easy and fun for you to do. For me, it's location. So I meet people all over the world every day in sales calls because of the nature of my business. Post-COVID, it's almost completely non-geographic. So the first thing I do is I look on the map. I've had the privilege of traveling a lot. So, and not just to big places, but to little places. So, someone's joining me from Tulsa, and I'm like, is that old Residence Inn that's out by the highway still there? Because I used to camp out there a lot when I worked with that, with that machine shop. I'll try to find some little nugget that just shows, hey, I actually took a moment to get to know something about you. I hope that, shows that I'm actually paying attention, and maybe that I'm interested a little bit. So it doesn't have to be 20 things. It could be just one. Maybe for you it's sports. Maybe for you it's the birthdays. Maybe it's the family connection, whatever it is. For me, geography is just the easy win because I'm usually able to find a connecting moment. But yes, all of that can be part of this. This can help you scale your personality, if you will, as part of your process. So I don't want anyone to, what I'm trying to do is balance what we can do. I also don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Like, the starting point can be very simple. In the case of a tool like HubSpot, you can literally turn it on, connect it to your email, and as you email people, it will start building contact records in the CRM. And then you can start filling in information from there. You can start literally that simply. You don't really even have to use it at the start. Just connect it to your existing world so it starts to gather things. And then you can start figuring out how to work from there. If you want to take a more sophisticated approach, you can. You can start by saying, great, I'm going to organize all my contacts in a spreadsheet. Maybe I've got them on my phone and I'm going to export it and then put those in. That's fine too. Sometimes what people do is they start with their QuickBooks or their list of clients. HubSpot connects to QuickBooks Online. It also connects to Xero and a couple of the other common small business accounting platforms, or for that matter, NetSuite, if you're in a big company. But you could just connect it and get your clients over, and at least now you're connecting with your customers. Tell the system, I want to automatically make sure I'm following up with anyone who's ever been a customer of mine at least once every 45 days, and it will set that process in motion.
Okay. So, Doug, just as a time check, we have 10 minutes, 10 minutes left. And
absolutely.
so,
I really want to open it up to questions at this point. Like, what are people feeling are key learnings, key challenges? What's something that's driving you crazy that maybe this could help with if we started at a particular spot? Like, what do I do first?
sounds good. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions? Dustin Luther is a longtime member. He's also very experienced with HubSpot. Thank you, Dustin, for joining the meetings we've had with Global Chamber. This is something you know backwards and forwards as well. What's your reaction to what you're hearing, and what other elements would you like to add?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's so I feel bad for Doug on some levels. It's so hard to go over all the stuff that HubSpot can do in an hour.
Right.
Like, it's impossible, right? So,
Yeah.
he's just skimming the surface of what is done, and that's you got to start somewhere, right? So on some levels, you got to start somewhere. The only other thing I'll add, though, that somebody did this when I first got introduced to HubSpot. This is in 2018 when I was really started using it at a company. The COO had made a rule with all of his salespeople. We had about 18 salespeople, some BDRs and other sales, but the sales team, if it's not in HubSpot, it didn't happen. All right. So what that meant was people lost commissions if they were on calls that they didn't track. Back then, they didn't even record calls, but they would have to put their notes in. People lost commissions for everything. Like if your emails, like HubSpot will have it, so every email you send and receive can get into HubSpot essentially, right? If you're emailing and it's not going in, it didn't happen, right? So maybe somebody else, if the way they worked was the first contact was the one who would get 25% of their commission splits and these kinds, he had a whole numbers, right? But if it's not in HubSpot, it didn't happen. And salespeople only had to lose that commission once or twice before they went, holy shit, like I better make sure everything is in HubSpot. So the mindset, that set of mindset that I've honestly carried with me at every implementation I've done is that, like, think of it as the repository for all of your BD activities, and then insist that every little thing your company does can get in there. HubSpot is, out of all the tools I've ever used, is the best at consuming data from anywhere and everywhere. As Doug was saying, you're in LinkedIn. There's ways to get that data into your HubSpot so you can see like one of your team members or somebody else is contacting somebody on LinkedIn, or they're writing emails, or they're sending calls, and you can have the recordings, like everything that's going on. These prospects are visiting your websites. That stuff can all be in there. Like almost every digital activity these days that goes on can be sorted by a contact and live in HubSpot. And when you think of it like that way, and you start getting good and you build systems that do that, you 10x the value you get out of it. Because if you're only putting 2/3 of your contacts or your engagements in HubSpot, then you're doing 1/3 somewhere else. I find people just stop using it. They're like, well, I still have to go to my email. I still have to go do this other thing. I still have to go check this other Excel file to figure out who I'm going to call. Then HubSpot becomes way less useful. It honestly does, right? So think of it like all of my stuff, learn to use the lists, learn to this. Now there's so much to be done that for a lot of people, if you're not living in that world, it's really hard. You may never get there where everything goes in. You'll need some help. You got to bring a consultant or hire somebody internally and say, your job is to make sure we are using HubSpot all day, every day as a team. And the nice part about HubSpot, the cost per user is a lot less traditionally than like Salesforce. So somebody earlier on, I'm sorry if I missed the name, but you had said like, I don't have a Salesforce account, but some people on my team doing this stuff. Super common with most CRMs. If you're doing it though, you're just never going to get real value out of that. Like you got to make sure anybody who's in this marketing and sales part of your team has accounts and can use them and is using them, and all of their stuff is being tracked. There's ways to save money. You don't have to have the full-fledged, enterprise account for everybody and stuff. Like you can figure out ways to kind of get around paying a lot of money for this.
The cost. Can you give an idea of the cost?
I've got to use it.
Sorry. What is the kind of a cost that someone could you throw out a number, a ballpark number of what is the cost to use?
Sure. I mean, just to give a simple example. No, I'm sorry, Dustin, if you want to go ahead.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about the sales tools that we were talking about today, right? So there's a free edition. The cost of that is $0. You could literally use that tomorrow. The starter edition is like $20 or $30 a month. Okay. The professional edition is $100 a month, and the enterprise edition is $150 a month. So it's a dramatic range of cost. You don't need to start at the expensive spot. In fact, I generally encourage people not to. On the other hand, if you're going to use those tools and you're talking about, a couple of people, that might make sense too. So it really depends on what you're comfortable starting with and what you envision. What I always say is, what is the next 90 days going to look like for you? We set up this tool, you set it up. What's the next 90 days going to look like? But to answer your question, Stephen, it's literally from $0 up to hundreds or thousands of dollars, depending on what you want to accomplish.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My question, does it depend on the number of people you have in your base, or what the price is based on?
Repeat that question. I'm sorry, I caught most of it, but missed the end. I apologize.
The different rates depend on what? The number of people you have in your base, or what is it based on?
Sure. So I mean, I could literally give an hour-long discussion of how software companies come up with pricing, but the short answer is typically with HubSpot and similar products, the sales tools like the CRM is based on the number of users, right? So it's typically per seat. And the marketing tools are typically based on the number of people you want to market to. So like the number of marketing contacts is how HubSpot describes it. So those are typically the factors that move the needle. You know, and again, all four of the companies that I've mentioned, HubSpot certainly has a free edition. Not that that's the right starting place for everybody, but my point is that take a week, set up a free account, start using the the fundamental tools, get comfortable just doing it. I mean, look, I'm speaking as someone who has a habit of buying things before I'm ready. So I bought, the annual membership to the health club that I've been to once in 7 months. Okay. I guess 3 times in 7 months, let's be honest. So, if you want to buy the subscription and do the whole, fine, but you could also just start, take a few weeks, take a month and practice it's just like what he was saying earlier. You don't want to have 2/3 of your contacts in your system and 1/3 somewhere else. That's going to fail. You want to, if you're going to do it, do it. So I would recommend first practicing the skill, put your contacts in a CRM, start communicating, set it up and connect it to your calendar and your email. Just those very basic steps will set you on a huge path to success. And then you'll know that you're ready.
If I can throw one other thing in there, I'm always surprised their starter package is ridiculously reasonable for most small shops.
It is.
And you get a lot more benefit over their free. And it's something like, I mean, if the prices change depending on feels like when you log into HubSpot, but anywhere from $220 to $350 a year is it. Right? You can actually get a lot of good features with their starter package. So if you're a small team going, what do I want to do? No problem just signing up for the free account. You're going to find it. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And it's just not going to let you do it. The starter, you can do a lot and it'll integrate with all of your emails. He said Gmail or Microsoft, whatever you guys are using in house. It'll let you track all the users on your website. So if you've emailed someone and it's pixeled them and it's cookied them, then when they're on your site, it can grab and track them and all that stuff. That all works on their starter package. A lot of the tracking stuff. I've set a lot of clients up, and where they run into problems is when they start bringing their sales teams on. If they've got a handful of salespeople, you really get a lot of benefits popping up to that next level of sales. So that's when your costs will go way up to, I say way up, but it'll be, that starts closer to $600-700 a year, right? For a small sales team, and it goes up from there. So I think if
Dustin, you nailed it. I actually just put the link to the starter package in the chat.
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah. I was going to say the starter package is the answer for most small shops.
Just as a time check, we're at the end.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time, and I hope you've all enjoyed our time together today. Thank you so much, Doug and team.
I feel incomplete. I feel like this is a sort of like the last time you spoke, Doug, that this is a to be continued. Are you open to coming back and having another conversation?
Absolutely. And I want to thank in particular Stephen and Dustin and the others who joined the conversation as well. Interactivity is spectacular. So yes, let's continue learning how we can help one another grow our businesses through the Global Chamber and through HubSpot and tools like it.
If you were not able to get through and you have any issue getting to Doug W, send something to Doug B, at doug@globalchamber.org, and we'll get you connected. Thanks, everybody. Great conversation, Doug. You are amazing.
Thank you.
And
thanks so much.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Always.